I have with me today Mary West. And hi, Mary. Mary is a graduate of our master's program. She has a master's and is a licensed practitioner in shamanism. And she's been seeing clients since 2012, did you
Yep, I
say?
think that's right. Yeah.
Yeah. So if you're interested in Mary, you can contact her at soaringsouls.com. And
Actually,
it's
Mary,
Mary. What?
Mary at soaringsoul.com.
Okay, one.
Yeah.
Okay, non-plural.
Non-plural.
Thank you.
Yeah.
But she's been very active in a lot of things that we do at Light Song, and we call her Fairy Mary because she she has a lovely and just an amazing relationship in with the fairy foe, and we honor her relationship with them and the information that she gets. But I also am having her on the podcast today because she's had a quite an amazing, extraordinary experience with the fires here that we've had in Portland, Oregon. For some of you that might not know, Portland has been really consumed with fires this late summer. We got some very high winds, extremely high, higher than way above normal, which then also had some igniting fires, and they just spread like wildfire, like locomotives going around.
Yeah.
And Mary's land was very much affected by this. And all of us in Light Song were working with our spirits for each other and individually for ourselves. And so I thought it would be really great to inspire you with some magic.
Yes, magic's a good word for
Yeah,
what we experienced out here.
yeah. The other part of that is that next month, October 3rd and 4th, 2020, we'll be doing a basic class, and that's through the rabbit hole where you learn how to make contact with these allies of ours. So as you're listening to this, be remembering you too can do this
You can, you
if you learn
can.
how. So, Mary, take it away and share some of your story with us, please.
Oh, geez. Well, yeah, I'll tell you about this special place that I'm the steward of. About a year ago, we purchased this property. It's 20 acres southeast of Malala, and it's about 18 acres of mixed old forest, like really pristine, and an acre pond, and about an acre where we kind of live. Right now, we just have a little fifth wheel that we're living out of. We're going to be building a house, and we'd been looking for a place to live, not to some land for 5 years, basically since I really started working with the fairies. So it's like I just knew I was, the information I got was I was to be in deeper relationship, like day to day, on some land that I would be a steward of, and we could work in union together.
Hmm.
So for 5 years I've been looking, and so we just got it a year ago, and I've been building relationships since then with the fairies and the nature spirits. So that's a little background to let you understand kind of where I'm at. And so so to bring you up to date here, it's like then the fires are coming in, and I don't. Should I just jump in with this, Jan? Is this where you're thinking,
Yeah.
or?
Yeah, however you want to do that. I want to tell people too that I had just had the privilege of being out there with you about a week before the fires came. Isn't that about right? Or maybe 10
Yeah, I think
days?
no, it was like a week. Yes.
Yeah, and so as I was paying attention and praying for Mary, I could have a great visualization of where things were and as I was moving around the property. But that's neither here nor there. But as you're speaking and starting to talk, I could just feel that kind of memory coming in and how grateful I was to be out there and how much you had done with the land in just a year.
Thank you for that. Yeah,
Yeah.
I So I will say, to me, Spirit was talking to me since I got the land about fire. So
Mm,
interestingly, it's like as we've been designing our house here, it's almost like the Spirit's been saying, you know, take care of fire. So I've been telling the architect, we need to make sure the roof is ready and
mm,
the the outside is fireproof and windows, and I have been driven to build trails everywhere. Uh, and
right.
I just felt it was because I want to access the land, and it's a way to connect with the land and access all
Hmm.
parts. Somehow I like to be able to wrap my arm around it, I guess, and
Hmm.
touch it. But come to find out, trails play a major role in stopping ground
Fires.
fires.
Yeah. And
And
we talked about that. We talked about trail making and how you do it, and how intricate all yours were going to the different sections of the land. Yeah, that's right.
exactly. And at the time, I wasn't thinking about fire for the trails, but now it's like, oh, that's why. I mean, I knew I was being asked, and my heart was telling me to do this.
Hmm.
And now you walk the land, and some of these trails we're talking super small, like just enough for two
Hmm.
feet to walk through, and even branches of shrubs you had to duck under. They weren't elaborate, huge trails, a lot of them, and they stopped the fires. So that's not just the trails. I mean, it's the energetics of the trails. It's the
Yeah,
energetics of the heart.
yeah, yeah.
I sing the heart song, which is a beautiful song, connecting hearts to hearts. And it's not just humans' hearts to human hearts. It's all things, in
Hmm.
this planes, other planes, dimensions. And so, you know, the heart song is interwoven throughout this property on those trails. And um, yeah, and so, and lots of other obviously good intentions. And I really feel like so there's a physical trail building, but there's the energetic trail building that happened as well.
Hmm. Absolutely, absolutely.
Oh,
And then the fires came.
and then the fires came. Thank you. So I didn't think anything of it. We spend most of our time out here on this property right now, but we spend a couple of days a week in our town, in our house in Portland. And so we left like we normally do, on a Sunday evening, and went back to Portland. We heard, okay, know that there's going to be high winds and a fire danger, but throughout your whole life you hear storm potentials, and what's
Mhm.
the chances of anything happening
Yeah,
or
right,
impacting
right.
you? So we left like normal. We did not evacuate, because we left before evacuation orders happened.
Hmm.
And then we got the notice, the next night, that our area was evacuating. And at that point, it's like, well, what's there is there. Like, we're not going to go back to a danger zone. And
Hmm.
that's when, so before the evacuation order, I was following, what you have taught us, and how to work with spirit and with fire in general, and with nature in general. And because there were fires already happening in Oregon, so we open our hearts and we help each other throughout the world. We don't just centrally
Yes.
care of our little space, right? So I was already working to be in a relationship with fire, and relationship with nature, and relationship with myself, because as you teach, and as within so without, right?
Hmm.
And so what was causing fire in my soul and my body,
Hmm.
and how can I heal myself so the outside. And I know other people in my song also got that same message, and even posted on some of your bulletin boards. And
Hmm.
um so I keep going. Is this all right,
Yeah,
Ian?
no, it's fascinating. Yeah.
Okay. So I'm working generally, and thinking not impacting me, right? Like, so you're like, oh, like, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh geez, like, I me,
It's
like,
my property.
my property. And it was interesting to um watch myself. Well, you feel fear and anxiety come in, right? Like, and then but be through all the, 13 years now I've been with the light song. The training really, like, that doesn't last very long. We're talking 5 minutes maybe. And even when I'm feeling it, I'm knowing I'm feeling it, and it's something that's I'm gonna just have it pass through me, and
I mean, the
healing.
anxiety. Mhm.
Yes.
Yeah. Hmm.
And because laws of attraction is
Mm-hmm.
you,
Right.
you don't stay in those states. So it's like I notice them, I acknowledge them, I say thank you for the information. Yes, this is something to be aware of,
Mm-hmm.
and then you move out, and
Right.
you get to do the work. I mean, this here's the fun thing. I love that what you teach, and is that it feels like there's something you can do.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. Yes. Absolutely. It's an empowering
Yes,
that, yeah, you're not victimized by the situation. Yeah.
right. Yeah, and so because of that, it feels different when you're going through a crisis. It's like
Mhm.
you get to, and you realize, and you've learned through your experiences that sometimes things that are the most difficult that you're going through actually is for your highest good. So when you pray for your highest good, sometimes it doesn't show up the way you expect it to, and that's okay too. And so
Yeah.
there's a bit of like, okay, I'm going to put all my heart out, I'm going to put out protections, but in a way that also honors the mystery, great mystery. Like, I
Mhm.
don't know what's for my highest good. I guess my dog does. And I don't know
But you
what's for my,
trust it. But you trust it.
I trust it.
Mhm.
Exactly. I trust and let go. I do think I work energetically, set things in motion, work with the allies. And at some point you stop and you just trust and you let go and say, whatever happens is
Mhm.
perfect.
Yes. Yes. Exactly. Exactly. And so what did happen, Mary?
So uh, Tuesday night, the fire came in. Um, and it burned. I don't know what percentage of our forest it burned at that point, because we ended up having two fires come through, interestingly enough. So we had one fire come through, and it it came around from the south and kind of burned our south side and the west side of our property. uh, but we're uh, but not a lot. We're like it and I want to get to this picture that I sent you.
I
So
know it. That
so
picture is just
I
in
know
my
it's
mind. I
funny.
can visualize it.
So then a second fire. So I'm just going to get right to the second fire, because that was just like it skirted. I will say the first fire skirted. I don't even know if it barely, I mean, if it touched my property, it barely touched the property, right? And then 2 days later, a second fire came through. And now a and when woke up in the morning, I saw a map of here's our property right in the center, and it's green, and all on all three sides is red, like fire burning on all three sides. And the only property from this map that is green still is our property, which I call Sealy Springs.
Uh-huh.
It was yeah.
I know. I saw that picture and I'm like, oh my God. It was so adamantly visual of what this power that you had putting this energy in motion of protection that you were doing. It was just right there in your face. You couldn't
Yes,
deny anything. The colors just made it go boing.
exactly. It's so interesting. You work energetically and in connection, and but to see it physically on a map
Yeah, yeah,
was
exactly.
something else.
And your
This
neighbors lost buildings too, didn't
Oh
they?
yeah, so all my neighbors on the road to the south of me, like right on the south of me and across the road to the south of me, one lost a barn, one lost a house, another lost their shop. Like, it's the line stopped with us. Like,
Yes,
the,
yes.
the fire, I feel like the work that myself and you and all of the community, my prayer warriors did, all the
Mm-hmm,
prayer warriors did stop the fire from progressing.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Um, in relationship with the fire, because the fire, like, I think there's something also where the fire is also, there's a little bit of a choosing, like what is for the highest good, right? And it
Mm-hmm.
might, even though we asked for it to stop, the highest good might be to do something different. So it's like I also am playing with what's those edges, because and so the fire did creep around to the west and went on a little bit farther, but it
Mm-hmm.
did not touch my neighbor's property at that point. Yeah.
It's interesting that you say that because we had many people in Light Song be affected by these fires. Most, probably 80% of Light Song is located in these areas. And one of our members lost everything. The house burned down, the barns burned down, everything burned down. And I talked with her the other day, and she was doing the same thing as you were, whatever happens, happens, and I just trust it. And I said, well, how are you feeling now? And she says, well, I'm designing my new house that insurance is paying for.
Right.
And so there's that, they were in an older home, that, yeah, they're going to get a brand new house out of it. And, so
Right.
you just don't know. But I think, to me, what I really pay attention to is what you declare, where the declaration sort of puts you in the parallel reality that you're going to exist in. It's like that declaration. So you had a declaration, she had a declaration that, okay, this is burned down, but for my highest good, you know. And so that kind of puts you into a category of, well, these good things can happen. Where if you end up being mad and upset and this is terrible, that could, I'm just using this hypothetically,
Right.
but that could use or create a situation where the insurance company has this loophole and it says, well, sorry, you weren't covered in this area. So that declaration of what you expect and what you're going to step up and say, oh, no, I trust this. I believe this is for my highest good and everybody's going to be fine and I'm going to be fine. Then that kind of creates that reality that you then thrive in.
Oh, I love that. Yes.
Yeah.
That's what it feels like. What's interesting is I really felt energetic after the first fire came through that we were done.
Mm-hmm.
And when the second fire came through, I was really surprised.
Yeah, you're like, whoa, wait a minute.
Where
I thought we handled this.
exactly. And I checked in with the spirit allies here, right? The nature spirits and the fae, and I believe that they actually invited that fire in. Fire can be really healthy for a
Mm-hmm.
forest.
Forest. Oh, yeah, very. Uh-huh.
Really, and it feels to me like they put containers or
Mm-hmm.
parameters and guided it, and it was pretty much mostly a ground fire, which means a lot of the trees are unaffected.
Mm-hmm.
uh, and 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 the nature spirits and the fairies were so nice to me because they kept what was important to me. It's like, so most of the driveway in is unaffected and beautifully green, so that experience of entering this
Mm-hmm.
magical land that I'm hoping to do retreats on and classes and healing experiences is, it kind of it brings you into it. And then you get to the place where our new home is going to be built, and you look out you're on a bluff overlooking the pond, and on the far side is a beautiful forest hillside. And even though that hillside is burned, the trees that is what you see, like the tops of the trees, and they're all beautiful and green and
Mm-hmm.
lovely. And so these key places for me that would have been really impactful
Mm-hmm.
are kept
Mm-hmm.
in a way that really brings me great joy.
Yeah. I I I get it, Mary. And the thing of it is we never want to disappoint people that they didn't do something right, if they are affected by things. But again, I think that the attitude of going in and trusting your experiences, that's the biggest thing, that no matter what happens, you are being taken care of. I always say spirits got your back.
Right.
They have the bigger picture going on in how you're going to benefit from this in some way.
Mm-hmm.
Several years ago, I think it was in '97, we had very bad floods out here, torrential rains, and I live on an extremely steep hill.
Yeah.
So they were evacuating everybody, all the homes, up on this hillside. And I went out and I started singing to the trees, and I took my drum out there and I'm singing and I'm, talking to them about, holding the ground and being safe and protecting the land because the root system, is such a major part of all that. And sure enough, we had this mudslide that was just horrendous. And it literally came down our lot line, where the city came out and took pictures. It was a little embarrassing, because my neighbors are taken out where they have to have bulldozers come in to remove mud. The whole street had to have bulldozers to come in to even to get a car down it, and our house is just sitting there. So,
Oh,
I do believe that if you take the time, if we've built relationships with these spirits. It's not like it's just out of the blue, even though I think that they would love you regardless if it was out
right.
of the blue. But we have built relationships with these spirits. And one of the things that I kept telling to people, because I was fielding a lot of phone calls with all of this, was the body protector's job in your life, your ally, your body protector, is to take care of you and all of your stuff. you know?
I appreciated that reminder when you
Yeah,
shared that with
yeah.
me.
Because and also to work with the weather and the rain.
Hmm.
And for Portland, we normally have a beautiful September, and then the rains start somewhere just before Halloween, so we all get soaked.
Right. So
But
true.
it's atypical to get a lot of rain in September. In fact, it's, a lot of things happen in September because you're kind of guaranteed nice weather. But they came and we had, I guess, a week of the fires, and then
Mhm.
the rains came, and I think they're pretty much all contained now, aren't they?
I
Or
think so.
out,
Yeah.
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 So,
It's
yeah, it's been pretty miraculous all the way around and how this has worked. And it's just good. It's good to take these things and remind yourself over and over because people forget, even seasoned practitioners move into that fear, anxiety that you were talking about
hmm hmm
because they forget. And when you remind yourself, now, wait a minute, look at what happened in 2020 or look at what happened in 1997, and
right.
just, yeah, they're nice to keep and to share stories because it inspires others to build these relationships with these beings.
Oh, that sound. I love inspiring in that way because you inspired me and the other teachers I sung in. It's great to be able to share that and pass it on to others.
Hmm.
While you were talking, I was thinking about one of the things that I was doing during the fires. Um, and it reminded me of another teaching that we have and a lot of energy medicine has, which is, long distance, time, space doesn't matter, right? And um, it could be hard to be away from your land when something awful is happening, or hard to be away from a loved one when something is, whatever. Like if something's going on and you're away from it and you want to be there,
Yeah.
and the so I was able, like in my backyard in Portland, I have a pond, and it became the pond of my land. And I was able to be back there, and I was drumming and singing, and energetically, I was on the land
Hmm.
while the fires were coming. Like I know I was there, like I was,
Hmm.
and that can be really comforting too, uh, because I could feel it working. I could
Yeah.
feel the drumming working, the prayers working. I could feel the nature spirits, what they were doing, building up all this vitality and moving it where they needed to move it, or
Hmm.
create walls or invite in where they wanted. And
Hmm.
um, you could, um, instead of again being scared and worried, you get into this like, fascinated
Yeah. Yeah.
like I was in awe of watching. Not just, I'm not in awe of watching myself doing whatever I do, but in awe of watching the nature spirits do what they do, to be able to witness
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
how they respond to such things. And yeah,
Yeah.
just yeah, I forgot exactly what you said that had me go down that train of thought, but
Well, you started the um, the interview off with your steward of the land, and that's a really powerful statement. I mean, it describes a relationship. Instead of ownership, you you tend, you care, you're a caretaker of, and that energy in itself is an exchange with the spirits. It's not or the nature spirits, I should say. It's not an overpowering thing like this is mine and you're on it.
right.
No, it's like, no, I'm just helping you tend, and I'm helping you in your space, and we're living here, uh, co-creating a beautiful environment. And
Hmm.
yeah, so it was really powerful the way that you opened up and started that conversation.
Thank you for that. Well, that brings up a ceremony that we did within, I think, the first week of
Hmm.
purchasing this property. And we did a ceremony where my husband and I had a marriage ceremony where we married the goddess of sovereignty of our land.
Oh, that's
Yeah,
beautiful.
it makes me cry almost thinking about Pamela Rico, who's one of the teachers. She has a church and a circle that she does things with. And so one of the Sophia's circles was out at this property where my husband and I stood in the pond and we read our vows.
Oh, nice. That's
And
beautiful.
oh, it was so beautiful. And I wish I could tell you what the vows said, but I had actually written them on a piece of paper right before, and I was going to save it and make it nice and frame it or something similar. So get this. So I'm seeing them. And it's, by the way, it's raining and raining. We're in our yellow, raincoats, and so the paper's getting wet, and I'm reading it and saying these beautiful vows from my heart. So I would say it, and then my husband would say aho, because this he isn't as spiritual and it doesn't have the same words and language I have. So he stood next to me and said aho to everything I had written and
Mhm.
said, and I did get his okay
Mhm.
beforehand
Sure.
of what I was going to say.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But so after I said everything, a wind came and the paper fell out of my hand, went into the pond, like right at my feet. And we all looked down and it was gone. The paper disappeared. We're talking, we were standing in maybe a foot of water. A piece of paper doesn't disappear, but
So
it does.
the sovereign being needed her to say her vows. What's that paper say?
Exactly. So it's like, I feel like she took it, or maybe she's like, yes, I'm holding this. Yeah,
Mhm. Yeah,
I'm holding
that
this.
is wonderful. That is wonderful. Wow.
I love
What a
that.
great idea. That's beautiful.
Yeah, it was really quite spectacular.
Hmm.
The other magical thing that happened with the fire, so there's a place on this land that I've always thought of as kind of like the fairy court. Uh, Somebody else called it a fairy palace. Like it's this
I know
really,
what you're talking about. Yeah.
yeah, spectacular place. And even though I've been on this property uh, a year, they've only allowed me kind of into this one area. Allowed is kind of a funny word, but invited me in
Hmm.
to this area 5 times about. And so about a week before the fire, maybe 2 weeks, I think it was a week before the fire, they said you can finally build a little trail around this. And it's not super big, uh, but it's not a super big area, but you can build a trail around this one space. But the trail wasn't supposed to be a big trail. So it's like I'm I'm building the trail with just some little loppers and walking it, even having to duck under things. I'm not cutting lot that I don't need to, right? Like keeping it as natural, but still that I can access. guess the fire came right up, burning, you could tell it was burning hot, up to that trail so this trail is within 15 feet of what I would call the start of the palace or the court area. And the trail is 1 foot wide, maybe. I'm not really,
Yeah.
and it stopped it. Like the fairy court is protected and is the same. I just think that's magical.
Yeah, it's beautiful. It's wonderful, Mary. Yeah.
They
I
knew they knew the fire was coming, I think.
Well, it sounded like it because they had you doing all these trails to begin with. Yeah. Yeah. Again, there's always this bigger picture going on that we're just not privy to, and that is part of the mystery of life. And I think it challenges us in how we're going to live our lives. Are we going to live trusting, or are we going to live in a fretful state of suffering because you've got so much anxiety and worry going on? Because those are, you can be in a state of grace in no matter what's happening. And I think you're role modeling that and you're talking about that. And it, again, with the other light song person, it doesn't mean that it's going to end up perfectly the way you think it is.
Right.
But that state of grace still highlights you. It shines on you so that it brings you into alignment with something that's really beautiful going to happen. And sometimes it might be longer periods, but that suffering that we go through, no matter how much you worried, is not going to change that fire. But it could change your health. It could make things really hard on you, and it can change the way that you make decisions. In fact, we use the word response ability,
Right.
and how you respond is an ability that then sets something into motion. Your responsibility is how you respond and what you set into motion. So, yeah, I think it's fascinating. And again, I hope that people are inspired with this and that they want to build relationships with their allies and that this is intriguing to them. Of course, there's lots of different ways to do that, but I feel at Lightsong we've got a group of like-minded people that can support you in this process.
Yes.
Where you feel like you belong and you are supported and cared for and trained. And so it's just like this win-win-win-win-win. And part of our mission statement is, interlacing thriving communities of well-beings. Well, when we wrote that statement, we were thinking of humans, because this mission statement is actually quite old. But as we've looked back through time, we can see how that includes the fairy dimensions and the nature spirits. And, it's like these are communities of beings in the non-physical realm, even some of the intergalactics, it's like, but we're all interwoven and we're all working together to help keep this planet beautiful. And that's what the fairies do. They don't have free will like we do. Their mission, their purpose is to keep the earth beautiful, and they're working in tandem, with you. And so anyway, I think it's great.
I love that. One of the things they showed me that they did, which I thought was fascinating, I was sensing this, but I couldn't articulate it. And then a friend of mine, a friend of ours from Lightsong, checked in, and she was able to articulate what I was sensing. The fairies took this land and took it to their dimension.
Oh, yeah, that can happen
As
too.
the fire was kind of coming through, there was like an energetics that was taken to their dimension to kind of hold it or protect it or to vitalize it. Again, there's a great mystery on what they do. so that even then, even when the fires were happening, I felt the vitality of the land. And so when you're talking about fairies and their job is keep things green and vital and
Well, beautiful. I didn't say
beautiful.
green.
Okay,
Yeah,
sorry,
beautiful, because it can
sorry.
be they can be in the desert and it's
You're right. I appreciate that
or in the
correction.
ocean.
I, I was probably a little self-centered right
Yeah,
now
yeah,
in
yeah.
where I'm at. So I appreciate that.
Yeah.
So to keep it vital, healthy, and beautiful. And so it was interesting to see. I think that was one of their techniques of kind of working in that way. Um, and even when the fire was moving through, I could feel it being 100% full of vitality. Like I did not feel the land suffer.
Hmm.
Um, and that was with them. That was through relationship, those interconnected communities doing their work and us
Hmm.
watching and trusting them.
One of the things that I was doing, I was really practicing the um, the teaching that we receive from Machu Picchu, which I have shared this story so many times. I mean, it really, to me, this story is is a truth that I feel that I want to live by always, and I feel it's such a gift because it's so tangible. I can bring it up and to remind myself. But anyway, the story being, so I'll tell it here for
Please
folks.
do.
It's a true story where down in Machu Picchu, which is down in Peru, there were fires burning that could be extremely destructive to the sacred area. It's kind of like a national park for Peru. And so the council that runs Machu Picchu decided to bring in shamans, which is, again, one of my favorite parts of the story. And I actually know one of the council members because
Uh-huh.
I stayed at her place one time. And but anyway, they decided to bring in shamans to put out the fire, which is great. So there were several shamans that came in, and all but one went out and started doing the things that we were talking about, drumming, singing,
Hmm.
dancing, being in relationship, working with the elements, working with the fire, all these things that we're trained and we're very good at doing. But this one particular shaman asked for a little hut to be made, like a little personal hut, which we call a wiki up. I don't know what they call it in Spanish, but
Hmm.
you go in there and it's covered with blankets, and so it gets extremely dark where you can't even see your hand in front of your face. And you go in there and you pray. So she was in there for about a day and a half, and the fires went out. And all the other shamans knew that it wasn't what they were doing, that it was something that she had done.
Right.
And and so they asked her, they said, "How did you put these fires out?" And she said, "I found where I was out of alignment within myself. And when I righted that, the external world changed, you know." And to me, fire is both a metaphor as well as in the true story.
Hmm.
That when we have these issues that are really big on the outside, it's not about addressing them head on, it's what you're doing in here, in your center. Like, where are you out of alignment? Because the idea is the outside world is a reflection of what we're inside. And so I think in like your case especially, you were doing what you needed to do, but then there was this team of people that were also doing this type of work, and it was a collaborative effort. You're working with your allies, and we were working with you with your allies, but we were doing the other internal personal work to enhance and to help, support. So it's both. I think
Yes.
it's both. I know if I was in your situation, I would have possibly been too phonetic to, just be able to do that. I'd need to be, using some of that energy that we get worked up to.
Hmm.
Um, but I do think that a lot of people at Lightsong, because we've been teaching this now for a couple years, this exact story, we're also and are still going in to work with world problems and with
Hmm.
some of the other issues that we have in our beautiful city right now, which it doesn't even feel like home.
Right.
But it's just good training because
Right.
it takes you to that really deep place, which I believe is been an answer that's been avoided throughout human history. It's like we want to go inside and
Hmm.
make some alignments. And so anyway, I just thought I'd add that in because a lot of people were saying the fires are burning the fire.
Right. I love that story. I love the image, and I could feel that's what I love about being part of Lightsong is the community, and I could feel the personal
Mhm.
work being done by the community and the personal outreach that people did to me, which also helped me remember the teachings and remember the ways and
Mhm.
to show up in the way I really want to show up.
Mhm.
And sometimes you
Mhm.
need people to help remind you along the way. And it was supported. I The other thing that came up for me when you're just telling this story is at one point when I had a wave of fear and anxiety come up. I was like,
Mhm.
okay, what do I do with this? And I decided I'm going to draw a card. And I asked,
Oh
what do
yeah.
I need to know right now? And I used the soul cards that don't have
Mhm.
interpretations except what
Mhm.
you or your allies can give for them. And I drew this card, and it's this person super relaxed, just all kind of curled up almost, kind of looking asleep, almost all curled up. But I'm thinking when I think about that going inward, it has this feeling of someone very much going inward and comfortable with that going
A
inward, right? And
peaceful going
peaceful,
inward.
thank you,
Yeah.
very peaceful
Mhm.
inward. And it's surrounded by a red ball. Like this person is just completely surrounded by a red ball. And then on
Uh,
the outside, I think it's just green.
mhm.
And that really brought up for me that teaching you just shared with
Mhm.
everyone. And it helped me find that centered place, and it helped me go in deep
Mhm.
um, and uh, reflect on where the fire is in within me, but also seeing it not as a seen as a helpful tool. Like
Mhm.
fire is clearing, and it can be really helpful to help you um, to clear what needs to be cleared within you. And so inviting the compassionate element of fire
Mhm.
to partner with me in a sense to clear what needs to be cleared and
Mhm.
address what needs to be addressed in a good way.
Well, I think too, when you go inside like that, you can say, why am I anxious?
Hmm.
What is that attached to? And when you can discover those things, it helps you weave down inside of yourself where you can actually say, well, in the big picture, I'm actually quite safe, you
Right.
know, and all the rest of this stuff is this stuff I'm making attachments to.
Mhm. Mhm.
It's part of that presence that we give a lot of lip service to.
Yes.
But it helps you weed out the things that are really important because really the most important thing, Mary, is that you're safe and that Daniel was safe.
Right.
And and when you can get to those places, it allows you to take a deep breath and just
Mhm.
say, "Oh, I'm in alignment. I'm in myself here, and this is good. This is all that I
Right.
need." And
Mhm.
so, anyway,
I love that.
yeah. So I think it's been a beautiful process. It's something that we'll all remember and keep learning from for years to come.
Mhm.
Um, I think that the world is definitely in a place of major transitions, and it puts people in really horrific situations all over the world. And as we become more proficient in what we're able to do as healers, we can be more effectual around the world, in our own steadiness.
Right.
And yeah, so
Thank
Anyway,
you.
for
Thank
sure.
you. Yes, for the tools and for helping myself and others and the people listening to this podcast really, reach and touch their heart, know their heart, and being able to work uh, individually to affect then the whole.
Hmm.
Those thriving communities, the mission of Light Song.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. The thriving communities. I love it. Well, Mary, it's always delightful to connect with you,
Thank
and
you.
I think that people are going to gain a lot from this. And I want to thank you for taking the time and telling your story. It's a
Thank you. I
fascinating story.
appreciate the invitation, and yeah, it's nice to tell my story. Actually, there's something very healing about that as well.
Hmm. There is healing. Yeah, I think as we speak of things, we start actually hearing more and more connections in it.
Exactly. Or you find yourself speaking about something that it's like, wait, I didn't even think that before. Like, where'd that come from? Spirit, hello.
Yeah, exactly. Well, thank you, and I will talk to you soon, I'm sure.
Perfect.
Okay.
Mwah.
Mwah. Mwah, mwah. Let me see. Oh, let's see. I'm looking for my buttons here. I'm
Just
not
stop
sure of my
recording.
buttons. Yeah, I
Yeah.
know. I know. I have to put my glasses on. There we